Grant Miller here, Miami Community News. I'm with Jason Edward Bloch, former judge. Am I correct?
Correct.
How many years did you serve?
I was on the bench from 2014 to 2017.
Wow. All right, let's talk about who and what are all about you. Where were you born?
I was born in Chicago, but we moved down here when I was a little baby.
What part of Chicago?
It was the Park Ridge area, but we moved down when I was 3 into Hollywood.
Both my parents are from Chicago. Both my grandparents are from Chicago. My grandparents are from Chicago.
I've been back a few times. It's a great city.
Oh, it's a great town to visit. And well, they do have the Cubbies, the White Sox, the Bulls, the Blackhawks. Okay, so you moved here when you were 3. Where did you go to elementary school?
Sheridan Hills.
Name your favorite teacher.
At Sheridan Hills?
Yeah.
I think Mrs. Knobloch, probably.
Isn't that crazy? How many you can remember that? Junior high.
Ooh.
Favorite teacher.
Mrs. Crawford. That was middle school.
Middle school.
Well, I was in the newspaper class, which was also the yearbook. So it was like we were learning about journalism and writing stories, and so I was.
Maybe we should switch roles.
Okay. Well, no, I think we both probably made the right career choices. You're better where you are, and I'm better.
Okay, so Mrs. Crawford, high school. What high school did you go to?
Nova High School, the public one in Davie.
Okay, and who was your favorite teacher?
Oh boy, probably Mrs. Radow, who taught. She was a debate coach, but she taught other subjects as well. That's a tough one. I had some good teachers there.
Okay, where did you go to undergrad?
UC Berkeley. I was a business major there. University of California, Berkeley.
You're what kind of major?
Business administration.
Who was your favorite teachers? Give me 2 if you have. Do you remember?
From college? That's tough.
Wait. You can remember elementary, but you can't remember college.
Isn't that interesting how those early memories form an impression?
I can remember my 1st to 6th grade teachers. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th. Okay, no favorite one. All right, law school. Where'd you go?
Georgetown.
Okay.
Washington, D.C.
Right. Favorite teacher?
There were some good ones. One I remember is Professor David Cole. I had him for a couple of classes. Who's just a brilliant guy, a brilliant lawyer, argues cases in front of the U.S. Supreme Court and other appellate cases. I don't necessarily agree with all of his judicial philosophies, but he didn't bring any of that into the classroom. He really taught us how to think about the law.
You got to kind of love that kind of teacher.
Yes.
Because you might have his opinion politically, but he taught you the law.
Right, which was, I don't want to get too far on a tangent, but I think probably when I went to school and when you went to school might have been a little bit different about their approach to educating.
All right, so you finished law school at Georgetown, and then you moved back to Hollywood or to Miami?
To Miami, South Florida. Yeah, I came back home.
And where do you live now, in the Grove?
Coconut Grove.
How long have you been there?
Almost 30 years, I think, in the Grove.
Wow.
A couple of different places, but yeah.
Coconut Grove is it's so exciting. The whole Coconut Grove. Even when it was worn down, I still think it's exciting.
Coconut Grove goes through these phases. It's like an artist colony, and then it's nightlife, and then it's a UM hangout, and then it's high cuisine and more residential. It goes through all these phases, but it's a great place.
And you live close to LaSalle.
Yeah.
And they've done incredible work there. They've revamped the campus, so more power to LaSalle. All right, so a couple years ago, you got appointed to judgeship. Who appointed you?
The governor. That went through a judicial nominating committee process.
And how tough is that?
That's very tough. So unlike the election, which I'm doing now, this is when there's a vacancy in the middle of the term.
Right.
You have to apply. Goes through this committee made up of local lawyers, very rigorous application, very hardcore vetting process. They talk to your opposing counsel. They talk to judges you've been in front of.
Wait, so they're interviewing you. They just don't interview. They interview people that you had cases against too.
Yes,
that's impressive.
Yeah, and so they go through all of that, and then they come up with their nominations. And I was very fortunate to be nominated.
Which governor?
And then ultimately, I was appointed by Governor Rick Scott.
So who interviews you? Other lawyers?
So the way it works with it's called the JNC, the Judicial Nominating Commission, that's mostly local lawyers. they
And
look.
that's an honor to be on that.
It is. You have to be appointed. The bar appoints people. The governor's office appoints people. And at the time, they're really just looking for qualified judges, and they're making their nominations based on merit. And I had been a lawyer with the Dade County Attorney's Office for 20 years.
Wait, you work for the Dade County. Who do you work for?
Miami-Dade County Attorney's Office, which is not the state attorney. It's like in-house counsel for Miami-Dade County. So
you work for Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County.
Right. I was an assistant county attorney, a litigator. I did civil litigation, basically representing the county.
20 years.
20 years. Everything from, I started out doing county court cases, doing major construction litigation.
What was your first year there?
94, right out of law school.
Huh. I had many cases against the county before your time.
Oh, okay.
So, all right. So you get appointed, you get selected, and the governor approves it.
Yeah, I was among over 30 applicants, and I was fortunate enough to be appointed.
The incoming president of the Florida bar is Roland
Sanchez Medina.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Great guy.
He's on my campaign committee. He's one of my.
When you see him, say, was Grant Miller a mean football coach? Ask him.
Okay. Were you his coach?
I was one of his coaches.
What did he play? He seems like a sturdy guy.
That was when he was little.
But he's stocky, and everybody knows Roland Sanchez Medina.
He's one of the best humans around.
He really is.
Okay, so
he was a mentor of mine when I was a summer clerk at Mershon Sawyer, which was a long time ago.
All right,
but he's also on my campaign committee in this election.
So you work for the county. Were you appointed from there?
Yes, I was encouraged to apply, and then I went through this process. And again, I was fortunate enough to be appointed and serve.
All right, so when you run for judge, you really can't talk about much, can you? You can't talk about cases. What do you talk to the people about?
It's a strange process running for judge because, like you said, the judicial canons, the ethical rules prevent us or limit us as to what we can talk about. But we can talk about our experience. We can talk about our judicial philosophies.
Is running for judge, is that in Florida, or other states do the same thing? Or they all appointed and there's no elections? Is every state by state?
It's a state by state system. Other states have a similar system that we have. Elections, but if there's vacancies, then this appointment process, nomination appointment process. Some are just election, some are appointment only. Of course, the federal judges are appointed.
But then every 6 years, Florida State Supreme Court, you get
retention vote.
Retention.
Yeah. So
I have in my over the 40 years I've been in the newspaper business, I said, no, they got to run for office. They got to run for office. For a judge, it's just there's too many conflicts to me. Yeah, I think the retention, you get it once you get it appointed, you're there until you get voted out by the people. But to run, it's very difficult for a judge. Correct?
Yes, it can be. It can be, again, because what we're allowed to say is limited, and also because, especially in a county like Miami-Dade County, which is so big geographically, the number of residents, the number of voters, it's hard for a campaign like a judicial campaign to reach everyone. It's not like, say, a mayor's race or something like that. So that's why it's important for us to meet with voters whenever we can, come on your show, talk to respected journalists, and sort of let the people get a sense of who we are. But unfortunately, many voters don't know who the judges are or who the judicial candidates are.
That's correct. It's very hard to reach all of them. There's a couple 100,000 people going to be voting in August, and it's hard to reach everybody. All right, so let me get back. So you work for Dade County. Were you on any particular cases?
I was on a lot of cases.
Any interesting?
Yeah, there were many interesting cases.
By the way, he didn't work for the state attorney, didn't work for the prosecutor or anything like that. He worked for representing the people of Dade County.
That's correct. The taxpayers.
The taxpayers.
Yeah. So, for example, some of the litigation we had was construction defects. So the county being what it is, we have many departments, police, fire, public housing, and sometimes, like, for example, public housing. I was involved in a case where there was defective construction by the contractor, and the county was on the hook for it. So we sued.
That was a county project.
And
the builder didn't do a good job.
Correct. And so our job was to hold the builder accountable. And if you can't get them to agree and settle and resolve it, and you have to sue them.
Who was the?
I'd prefer.
No. Who was the county attorney?
Back then, it was
Ginsburg?
Robert Ginsburg. Yep, and then Murray Greenberg was the first assistant.
And it's crazy. They both, I think both of them. One of them lived in Pinecrest, but Ginsburg, he really served the people really a great job. Greenberg did a great job. It was tough in that era in the 90s. Were you in the 90s?
Yeah, I started in 94.
80s and 90s. It was a difficult time to be in that position.
He was great because, they both were. They allowed the lawyers to somewhat be insulated, to really fully be insulated from the political process.
Was Jody Coffey?
Coffey.
Yeah, Armstrong.
Yep.
We had a case against the county. She just whooped us like a dog. And she put I didn't know who she was. I didn't know. She put her arm around me and said, "Grant, how you doing?" And she said, "I'm doing my job." Right. So how are you reaching everybody? Do you go to events? Are you meeting a lot of people? I know you did this before, but have you met new people? How do you get around? How many events do you like today? You have an event today.
I have several events today. Go around, meet voters, sometimes go to residential living centers, go to bar events, go to community events, lots of places.
I understand, I read that you're supported or endorsed by FOP?
Yes.
Who?
So the Miami Fraternal Order of Police.
Is that City of Miami or is it other organizations?
Well, it's both the City of Miami and as well on behalf of the statewide organization. So I was very proud.
That's an exciting honor.
Yeah, it is. It is. And as well as the League of Prosecutors. The League of Prosecutors is made up of current and former state attorneys, U.S. attorneys. Not all of them are prosecutors. Some of them go and become criminal defense attorneys or civil lawyers, the retired ones. And they had a forum where all the candidates go and make their presentations, answer questions, and so forth. And these included lawyers who practiced in front of me, as well as lawyers who practiced against my opponent, who is a public defender. And I was, again, very proud and grateful to receive their endorsement, as well as the police.
The police is truly, their screening processes must be tough because they look at everything, the police.
Yeah, I think they're very careful before they give their endorsement. I don't think they're looking for someone who's going to rule one way or another. I think they, like other organizations, are looking for a judge who's going to be fair to everybody. And, one of the things, since leaving the bench, I was on the Miami Civilian Investigative Panel.
City of Miami.
City of Miami. So you probably know, I don't know if your viewers know, but that's made up of civilians that review allegations of police misconduct.
In the City of Miami.
In the City of Miami.
And City of Miami used to have a lot of complaints.
Well, I think if you go way back, there's problems with police historically in many localities.
Right. But not now. There's new police chiefs.
I think over time at the county and at the city, and by and large everywhere in Dade County, police departments have gotten more professional. They've become more accountable. And while I was on the Civilian Investigative Panel, there would be occasionally instances where you might have a police officer that did something wrong, and we would call that out. But by the same token, I was known as a member who was fair to everybody. So I would look at the evidence, I would look at the applicable law, I would look at the procedures, and just basically call balls and strikes. And when the allegation I found wasn't founded, then that's how I ruled, and that's how I recommended. And I was known as someone who wasn't going to be swayed by whether it was a complainant or a police officer. We'd call it down the middle.
Okay. You're running for circuit court.
Yes.
What's the difference between county court and circuit court?
So circuit court is civil controversies over $50,000, criminal cases that are felonies, the higher end, rapes, murders, batteries, things like that, armed batteries. It also involves probate. When someone dies, you have to administer their estate. Juvenile dependency, that's when you have allegations of parental neglect or abuse.
It's civil cases for circuit.
So there's different divisions. So circuit can be any of those things that I just mentioned. It's basically a higher, more serious level of jurisdiction than county court. And I was a circuit court judge, and I'm running to be circuit court judge.
Different states have different names. They don't call it. Not every state calls it circuit court.
Right.
Why did you choose to come back from Georgetown? Because you're in Washington D.C. You get a lot of grief from up there. You know, is South Florida? You know, is it your home? Is that the reason, or is there any particular reason?
It's a lot of it is coming back home. It's where my family is, but also I wanted to be a public servant, and I could have gone to law firms and gone on that track and made a lot of money, but I found that it was more rewarding to work in public service, to work at the county attorney's office, work for the people of Miami-Dade County, which is the same reason why when I was encouraged to apply for judge, I did that as well. And this is the place I think I can, and the job I can be most effective as a public servant.
Time's running out, but elections on August 20th. Early voting, absentee voting is coming right around the corner, isn't it?
Yes.
Soon. Am I correct?
Yeah, mid-July.
It's wow.
Just a few weeks away, yeah.
And when did you start campaigning?
I've been declared in this race since late last year. And so we've been campaigning. Obviously, we've been ramping it up. So people are going to have to make their decision. If I could, Grant, I'd like to give people some additional information to think about when they're making their decision. So I was a former judge before. Again, we talked about how voters really don't know that much necessarily unless they happen to be lawyers or know people who are involved. Picking a judge is very important. And one of the things that you can look at is some of the report cards that I got when I served. For example, when I was judge, the Dade County Bar, these are all the lawyers.
Dade County Bar is what?
Dade County Bar Association is made up of the lawyers in Miami-Dade County. These would be the lawyers that would appear in court that would practice in Miami-Dade County. And they have a poll.
Right.
And in that poll, 50% rated me as exceptionally qualified and another 40% as qualified. So that 90% rating was one of the highest in the survey that year. And furthermore, when I was on the bench, we all know about appeals and cases sometimes being overturned on appeal. I had a record of all of my cases being affirmed, meaning the appellate court never found anything wrong with the decisions I made. Now, I don't proclaim to be perfect. I'm sure I know I'm not perfect, and I don't know that I'd be able to keep that record. But what it suggests is I care very deeply, and I'm very thoughtful and thorough in the decisions that I made as a judge. And whether you never have an encounter in the judicial system or know someone that might, you might be a victim of a crime, a witness, might be a defendant or know somebody who is, might be involved in a civil dispute. We want to have people that know about the law, that are conscientious, that are fair and impartial. And that was my reputation. And I was approached again. I've been doing pro bono work for the last 8 years. I'm on the Board of Legal Services. I represent people.
Explain that, what it is.
Legal Services of Greater Miami is basically an organization that provides legal representation. People can't afford it. Might be facing eviction or foreclosure or denial of government benefits, and as well as other kinds of cases. And hiring lawyers is very expensive, especially in Miami-Dade County as prices continue to go high. So I've been doing pro bono cases myself. That pro bono means I'm providing the representation for free. I handle those cases, evictions, foreclosures, defending people. But I'm also on this board that provides this very important service. But I was approached to run again, to be a judge. And I'll just say this. We live in, unfortunately, somewhat polarizing times in our country and in our community. And one of the things that I've noticed, more so than I think I've ever seen in my lifetime, when we talked about growing up down here. One of the things that I'm starting to perceive is that the public's confidence in the judiciary is going down. We know that institutions like the media and Congress, those have been taking a beating in terms of how the public feels about them. But one of the last places where the public had confidence was our judges, our courts. And I find that people are having less and less confidence. And the courts are basically our least powerful branch of government. They don't have an army. They don't have a police force. Right. All they have is the power of their reason and the fact that the electorate is willing to respect them. And once the public starts losing confidence in the courts, then that's really the first step to threatening our democracy. So what I represent when I want to do when I get back on the bench, because this was the reputation I had, was someone who is going to be fair and impartial and neutral to everyone. And I think we need to restore that confidence before it erodes further. And I'm not saying anything about any of the judges that are currently on the bench. We had some wonderful judges. I'm talking about a phenomenon that's occurring
across the country.
Yeah, across the country. And we have so many people that come to South Florida, fleeing countries where they don't have an impartial court.
That's correct.
They don't get to serve on a jury. They don't get to vote.
Miami is the land of immigrants.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are from communist countries, and they want to believe, we all want to believe, that the judicial system works.
Yeah.
So August 20th is the last day you could vote. Absentee, early voting. Go out and vote for Jason Bloch. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Grant.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Everybody.